Hey guys, how's it going? It's Katsu here. So I've been working at improving the look and feel of the channel, and one of the things or the aspects that I'm going to start incorporating is an intro animation. I've been looking at references and watching different video tutorials, and I've found some great ideas by Ducky3D and Default Cube. If you haven't seen their content, I highly suggest you do so. They have some excellent videos. So on this tutorial, we're going to create our own intro animation. I'm going to explain my thought process, and we're going to go over the complete workflow from creating the text and the logo to setting up the scene, adding the materials, create the animation, and the final render. So without further ado, let's go ahead and get started. Okay, so we have our default scene here. I'm going to delete everything right now so that we can start from scratch. And let's go ahead and create a text object. I'm going to click 7 so that we can have a top orthographic view. And with tab, I'm going to type K. And over here under our object data properties, font, I am going to select one of the fonts that I've decided will work perfect for my logo. So once that I have that, I'm going to rotate 90 degrees on the x-axis. And over here under geometry, you can extrude it. And let's also add some bevel as well so that it'll look better. So I want to zoom in real quick. And here under depth, let me just add a tiny bit of bevel. I think 0.03 looks great. There you go. Also, one last thing here. Under alignment, I'm going to select center and both on horizontal and vertical. There you go. So now we have our K. I'm going to duplicate this, tab in and change it by an S. And I'm just going to grab it and move it around somewhere that makes sense around here. And I'm going to duplicate this again, move it down towards the x-axis. And I'm going to type Katsu Studio. There we go. I'm going to change this font over here under fonts. I'm going to select this one and I'm going to scale it in. Now, in order to center everything, I'm going to make use of my camera. So let me create a camera object right here. I'm going to bring it back a little bit and I'm going to change the focal length to 35 millimeters. Also, here under camera, let's go into viewport display, composition guides, and I'll add thirds and center. And now I have a point of reference so that I can align my font and make sure it's perfectly centered. So I think this looks good and I'm going to move it up or towards the z-axis. I think right about there is fine. And let me move the text as well. There you go. I think this looks great and I can move it back just a little bit. There you go. Just like so. Perfect. Now, since we scaled this down, I'm going to Control-A, scale it. And when I scale this, the extrude will be a little bit messed up. So I'm going to go back and just fix it. I think this looks fine. And also, the bevel is now too high. So I'm going to bring it back just a tad. I think 0.001 looks good. There you go. So now we have our logo right here. And next, I'm going to work on okay, so what do I have in mind? How do I want to animate this? One of the things one of the animations that I'd like to do is create a Dolly Zoom or vertigo effect. Now, how can we accomplish this? I'm going to insert a keyframe. I'm going to keyframe the location at this point, since I like this composition right here. And also I'm going to create a keyframe on the focal length at 35 millimeters. So now that I have this, oh, and one last thing, this should be done at the end, not at the start. So let's say that we want a 5-second animation at 60 frames per second. So that'll be 300 frames. So when I'm going to position myself at frame 300, and again, I'm going to insert my keyframe here for the camera location as well as my 35 millimeters. Now I can do the modification here. Actually, let me delete this keyframe here. There you go. So what's going to be my starting focal length? Let's say 300 millimeters. And I'm going to push the camera back towards my y-axis. And what I want to accomplish is that in order to achieve the Dolly Zoom effect, is that I want to have the same position or the same relative position to my of my text. So let me bring this back around there. Let me zoom in real quick. Just about there. Okay, so I'm going to go back to my first frame. Oh, I should have done this on my first frame, I'm sorry. So let me go back here, change this to 300. Let me look at my camera view, zoom in, just like so. And let me add the keyframe on my initial focal length as well as my location. So now that I have that, if you notice, if I play this, the camera will move towards my text and my focal length will decrease until we arrive at 35 millimeters. Now, the trick here, if I go into my camera view and play this, this should stay completely static. And that means that the effect has been achieved. And now whatever I put here on the background will have that Dolly Zoom effect. Perfect. So now that I have that, I am going to add a floor real quick. So mesh plane. Let me bring it back a little bit here. Just like so. I think this is okay. And I'm going to go into edit mode by tabbing in, selecting this edge right here. And I'm going to grab it and move it towards my y-axis just until it's on the edge right here. Once I have this, I'm going to tab out and scale on the x-axis as well. And just to make sure, I'm going to go to my last frame here. And I want to have these two corners right here to be out of the frame. So I'm going to scale it back a little bit more. There you go. So now we have this right here. And again, my camera is going to start moving here until we arrive to our endpoint. Now, one of the other things that I want to do, because of the way I'm imagining the how this logo will look, is that I am going to do it's called a pedestal movement. That means that the camera will move on the x-axis. So I'm going to go into my first frame and I'm going to insert a keyframe here so that we can have our reference at the beginning of the movement. And now on our last frame, I'm going to go into camera view and I'm going to select the text as well as the camera. And I'm going to move them up so that the floor is out of my frame. And let's insert a keyframe location. So this will create both a Dolly Zoom effect as well as a pedestal effect. If we look at it from the side, you'll see that the camera will start going in and it'll start moving up. Just like so. And if I go into my camera view, we'll have this effect right here. That is perfect. Okay, so now that we have that, let's start adding some textures to our floor, to our logo. And one of the things that I'm going to do here is I'm going to add some clouds or nebulosity as a background. So in order to do that, let me create a cube, mesh cube. I'm going to move it towards the y-axis like so. And let me go into my final frame here. I'm going to scale it on my x-axis. Move it up a little bit so that it's centered. And scale it on the x-axis so that it's completely out of frame, just like so. Also, I'm going, let's select the object properties, go into viewport display and display as, let's change it from textured to wired. And one of the things that I like to do is make sure that this, let's see here. Oh yeah, I know what's going on. As you can see here, my cube, I would like to make this back portion of the cube bigger. So for reference, I'm going to use the same dimension for my x-axis as my y-axis. Now that I have that, I've noticed that in order to get the best results, I like to scale it up a little bit more until it's at the same size, the back of the cube, to my camera, and then I'm going to send it back again so that it's behind my text. There you go. So let's watch it again. Also, let me go here on the, okay, I have my 60 frames per second, perfect. So this is how it looks right now, which is perfect. Excellent. Okay. Let's start working on our cube because I like working with the volumes a lot, as you may know if you watch my other videos. So let's split the screen. I'm going to have my shader editor at the left. And in order to make this work, I'm going to have to add a light source here. I'm going to add a point. Let's bring it back here towards the center and let's increase the power, the radius first. Just around there, I think, and let's make it like 1000 so that it's clearly visible. Perfect. And now that we have this, let's erase our principal VSDF. I'm going to add principal volume, just like so. There you go. And let's add let's add a gradient texture. So I'm going to replicate like the effect of the nebulas that I like to do. So I'm going to, if you haven't seen those nebulas, I'm going to leave a link at the end of the video. There's a tutorial I made on creating procedural nebulas. So it's going to be basically the same process. So I'm going to add a math node, go into subtract. Let's add this here. And then I'm going to add a noise, ramp, multiply node. I'm going to grab it from here. I'm going to borrow one, change it to multiply. And let's plug this vector here, plug this byteboard right here, this over here. And let's combine or send this over here. This has to be subtract, spherical, and this has to be as texture. Perfect. Let's plug this to our density. And now we have something real cool. Let's move to our last frame so that we can have a better view of our nebula. And I'm going to make the background black so that we can see it better. Okay, so I'll ramp up the detail, move the roughness around there, bring in the, let's multiply this by 2. There we go. So we're going to have something around there. We're going to move this right here. Also, okay, now that we have that, let me duplicate this. This will be like our object texture right here. Let's multiply node here. Take this bad boy over here, and we'll plug this here. Sorry. And also, I'm going to multiply it again just to increase the density. Let's multiply it by, yeah, 2 is fine. Okay. Now that I have this, I'm going to make sure to add ambient occlusion, bloom, screen space, reflections, and refraction, and color management. High contrast, just like so. And just so that we can see it better, I'm just going to temporarily increase the samples under our render properties and decrease the distribution. This is just so that I can take a better look at how this, at my nebula. And let's bring this in. You know what? I'm going to create also another mapping node real quick. Oh, I'm going to duplicate this right here. And let's reset this. We're going to plug the generated. This creates a very cloudy texture that I like a lot. Let's plug it right here. And let's decrease our detail. I think this noise texture this shouldn't go right here. This dude right should go here. And then we'll plug it here. Let's add another color ramp real quick. Oops, what happened? I don't know why it went over there. Did the same thing. So this should go here, this should go here. And now I'm gonna decrease the detail. I'll bring it down. Let's bring the detail and the roughness down. And I'm gonna leave this like a 2 for the time being. I just want to start working on how it looks. So let's see here. Okay. This is why. This should go from object to vector. Okay, let's give it a second for it to render. There you go. So now let me decrease the scale or increase it a little bit more, just like so. I think this looks good. Somewhere around there. Let's increase the detail around 10 and the roughness a little bit more. There you go. And now I can work on my detail and roughness, bring it back up again. And let's do our scale at 2 is fine. Yeah, I think this looks good. There you go. Okay. I think this looks nice. And finally, let's add some color. So I'm going to add a multiply. I'm going to borrow this ramp here. Let's reset both. Plug this right here. This will change to multiply. Plug it into our color ramp. Move this a little bit further into the back and plug this into our color. And again, in case, while this is updating, basically I'm doing a gradient sphere in order to get a spherical shape. And this will modify my base shape. And over here, this is like my base texture. And finally, we're adding some color at the end. So I'm going to add a node. Let's bring the slider up. And let's change this to kind of a blue hue. We're going to move this a little bit back. Have this to be like this color right here. Let's take a look. Okay. Let me increase the ramp a little bit. There we go. That looks better. Let's see if I can change this to a red, just like so. Okay. So let's take, I'm going to bring the tile size up again and bring down the samples again so that we can have a smooth animation. And let's play it. And this is how it's looking so far. So we're getting like a zoom out on the nebula, real cool. Perfect. Now that we have that, let's work with our plane right here. Let me change to, let's change our viewport shading to a material preview. And let's split the screen again. Change into shader editor and create a new material. So we're going to add a noise texture. Control T. You need Node Wrangler in order to create this. You can add it on the add-ons, edit preferences add-ons, add a color ramp, and plug it into our roughness right here. And change this to object right here. And in order to get some information, let's change it to metallic. Let's move our base color down a little bit. And it's important that we need to Control A scale to get the proper scaling of our texture. Let's decrease our scale here, around there maybe. Move our color ramp up, just like so. And let's increase the detail and the roughness. And bring the white slider down a little bit. There we go. We have this like grimy surface. And I think this looks nice, and we can just make it a little bit gray in order to affect the roughness more. There you go. I like that. And also we can add some texture as well to the bump. In order to do that, we can do we can have a Voronoi, map it, ramp it, bump it, and plug it. This goes here, this goes to our height, this goes to our normal, and this will go as an object. Oop, as an object right here. And change this to F2. And we can decrease the scale, bring it back a lot. This is completely up to you how you like this to look. Or for instance, this I think is what Ducky3D did, which he changed F2 and Chebyshev, and it created some nice textures here, like so. I think this looks great. Change it here, there you go. This is how it looks so far. Let's change to our render view. So now we have this effect. Really cool. Okay, so now that we have that as well, we can add some lightning. And we can go ahead and texture our logo as well. This is going to be like quite similar to this one. So I'm going to have this duplicated, and this will be like the text material. Let's get rid of the bump. Let's bring this in closer, like so. And we can play a little bit with the scale, and we can make this lighter as well. There you go, just like that. And now that we have that, we can just apply the same material to our S and to our text as well. There you have it. And now that we've done that, let's add some lights. And in order for the lights to look cooler, I'm going to create another volume, but this is going to be like our fog for the world. So we'll bring this here. Let's scale it on the y-axis like so. On the x-axis as well. And let me go to the side view. Let's go into our object properties and change display as wire so that we can have a better look at how this is. And we might need to scale it on the Z axis as well. Like that. There you go. And now that we have this, we can just add a very basic principal volume without any bells and whistles. So, like so, and decrease the density a lot, like 0.03 maybe, something like that. And now that we have that, we can now add our lights. So I'm going to add an area light. Move it on the Z, on the Y. Let's see that it's out of frame. So up to here, and I can decrease a little bit more. Rotate so that we can point it straight at my font. Increase it a little bit more. There you go. Let's go into our render preview, and we can increase the power of this lamp by, let's say, 200. There you go. And now we might want to increase the density a little bit more, maybe. Not that much though. I think this looks fine. Okay, so let's take a look. And there you go. So we're creating this great movement. Also, there's a couple of other things that we can do. Let's see. Yeah, I can add a couple of effects as additional effects. So let's use this point. I want to change this to, let's say, just a little bit more blue. And we can do, for instance, when it reaches the end right here, actually maybe here at 280, we can, having our point, we can create we can add a keyframe, well, change it to 0, add a keyframe, and then on 290, we can add another, we can move it up to 1000, add a second keyframe, and then on 300, we can bring it. Actually, you know what? It's gonna be like 1000. This has to be like a really high value, let's say 5000, like so. And we'll bring it down back to 1000 again. And now we have a kind of a storm in the background at the end. Just like so. So here at the end, it will increase the brightness and decrease it again. Just like that. And also we can add some shake to the text as if it was like colliding with something. We can add that, let's say at frame 280 maybe. This is also really simple. What we have to do is add, let's do location and rotation. We're going to change here from our timeline. We're going to select graph editor and then hit N, go into our modifiers. Let's expand this. Select the X location, and I'm going to add noise, but I'm going to restrict the noise so that it will start on frame 280 and end on 290, and decrease the scale, the strength to 0.1. So if I do that now, when the text arrives here, it'll do a little shaky shake, like so. And we can just copy this go select our Y location and paste it right here. And we are going to move our offset so that the noise is different, and it'll randomize it and give it a better result. So I'm gonna do here 40, 60, 80, and 100. And now if I play it again, we get this kind of randomized sort of banging or colliding or shaking. And we can have the same here. Just paste it. Oh, actually I need to, let's see here. I don't know why it didn't, location or rotation, there you go. So this 0, okay, there you go. So it's gonna be the same, like 0, let's paste, this is gonna be 20, 40, oops. Oh. Let's copy this. So this was 40, this is gonna be 60. 80 and 1000, and we're going to do the same with our font. So I for insert keyframe, location rotation, let's expand this, go here, paste, and just move the offset again. The offset can be moved to whichever amount you want, as long as it's different, doesn't really matter. Just doing the same for all of them. 024 is 6. 80 and 100. There you go. So now when it arrives here, it'll check everything. And there you go. We can go back to our timeline. So there you go. We have our finished scene right here, finished animation. A little bit of shaky shake and thunders at the end. So let's summarize what we've covered today. We created the text using our font object. We can play with we can select our font, we can align it here. We can also extrude it and add some depth. Once the text was created, I made sure to go to the last frame here and add the final position of my camera relative to my font. And in order to create the Dolly Zoom effect, once I keyframed that, I went back to the beginning or to the first frame. I modified the focal length to, in this case, 300. It can be whatever you want it to be. And you need to make sure you're going to start going back towards the y-axis until you arrive at the same position relative to your text. Insert the keyframe, and that'll create the Dolly Zoom effect. I added the plane here, and after I added the plane, I wanted the text to go towards the x-axis with my camera in order to create a pedestal movement. So I grabbed both as well. I moved them up and inserted the keyframe again. After that was done, with my plane, we added some materials. In this case, we only affected the roughness and the bump. And in order for it to work properly, we made the material metallic. And we also added the background nebula. For our background nebula, again, with our sphere, with our gradient over here, this section right here modifies the base sphere shape. And this section right here, we need to combine these two with a subtract node. Over here, we added like the texture with our noise, color ramp mapping, noise color ramp. This increases the density. It's like a pre-gain. We combine the base shape with the texture over here, and we have like a post gain for the density over here, and we're plugging our color right here. And finally, we added some fog some world fog over here, really basic, just with a procedural volume with a very low density. And that's pretty much it. So once you have that, well, obviously we added an area light right here and also a big point right here. And in order to create the thunder effect, we just added some keyframes, increasing the power. And for the shaky, we just select the frames. We go into our graph editor, and with N, we can just add a noise modifier, making sure to select restrict frame range, because otherwise you're going to be having noise for the whole duration of your scene. And that's basically it. I hope you like this video. Please try it out if you like it, and send me links to your videos so to see how they look. And I think that's it. So thank you very much. Katsu out. Thank you very much for watching this video. Please consider liking and subscribing if you enjoy the content and think I've earned your subscription. I'm always looking to improve and create better content. If you have any feedback or questions, feel free to comment and let me know. I'm Katsu. Have an excellent day.